Okay, wonderful. Welcome, Sister Ellen Schmitz.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Welcome to Adrian, where you began, and where you'll end.
Absolutely.
And
right.
I'm very delighted that you responded to share your sister's story with the rest of the congregation and with those that are going to be watching you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why we ask, what is the name that you got when you made profession, when you became a sister? What's your religious name?
You're going to ask me that name?
Well, because let me tell you this, we have benefactors, we have people, because this is going to be on YouTube, and they're going to just, see Adrian Dominican Sisters, so put your name in. They don't know you by Ellen.
Okay.
A lot of people, they
You're
know you by
absolutely right.
They know you by Dominic
Dominic Savio,
Savio,
which I never received when I was teaching. I would get Salminio, Dick Savior, and everything else.
So did you choose that name, or was it given to you?
It was one of my choices.
Oh, good.
After I had handed my names in several times.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, but no, and then that was, probably one of my the third choice, which, hey, I didn't care as long as I hurry up and got a name and didn't have to hand them in again.
Okay. So you had.
Well, my dad said, well, if you had to choose a man's name, why didn't you choose my name? I said, oh, I did try.
Okay. All right. So anyway, those that know you by Dominic Savio know that you're the same person. Sister Ellen is Dominic Savio. So let's begin. People are very interested in your early life. What was our family dynamics like? And from what little bit I know of you, yours are rather very interesting. So tell us something about your family.
Okay. Well, I was born in Adrian, Michigan, on Winter Street. Now, I'm not exactly sure of the address because I didn't grab that from my sister when I was talking to her. But, and we, at that time, I was born at home.
Really?
And so,
okay.
The doctor came to the house, and I believe the doctor was a woman because I was always told I was named after the woman that delivered me.
Oh, wonderful.
And her name must have been Emily because my second name is Emily. So, but I never told anybody that in high school or when I was, because they would just put it together and all I'd get was Emily, and I thought, that's terrible.
You already decided what we do with those two names, huh?
Right. So I told them I didn't have a middle name then in high school. But anyway, that's it. And basically, and I was number 5 out of 14.
So there are 14 children in your family.
And I had 10 sisters and 3 brothers. And so that was very interesting. And so we didn't live in Adrian very long. We lived in Adrian until probably I was about 4 or 5 years old. No, I wasn't 5. I must have been 3 or 4. And my mother's family, her dad died, and she inherited one of the farms in Sand Creek. So then we moved to Sand Creek, and we were in Sand Creek until I was in 2nd grade. And while I was in Sand Creek, it was a farm.
Okay.
And on the farm, everybody,
had a job.
Had a job, absolutely. And I remember moving there. So I was probably 3 or 4 then. And
what was your job on the farm?
well, and I didn't have any job until I was a little bit older.
Okay.
But then my job was always, because I was small, it was not something that I'd go out and drive the tractor or anything, but it would be taking care of the younger ones to help my mother. And, that was good, And so when I started school then, my parents never came to school to see what the problem was. It was always the responsibility of the older ones to find out what the big problems were.
So when the teacher would call the parents, they'd send one of the kids?
Right. We didn't have a phone then when I was in Sand Creek. But they would say, I need to see your parents or whatever. And so then one of us would take care of the problem, whatever it was.
So your parents never had to go, one of the older ones?
No, they just depended on us.
Did you really tell them what they said about their
more or less,
child number 10?
Actually, we took care of it, so why would we have to tell? You know?
Oh.
So there was no big, problem unless, we couldn't solve it,
So you took your job very seriously, didn't you?
Well, we had to. Right? So anyway, my time in Sand Creek wasn't very long. I was still in, I think, first and second grade. And when I was in second grade then, if you recall, back in the 50s when they say, all right, now everybody has to go to a Catholic school. You recall that?
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so my parents were good Catholics, and they were serious about, doing whatever the church asked. And so they looked for a farm here in Adrian. And so
Okay.
then we moved to Adrian when I was, I didn't complete second grade in Sand Creek. I completed it in a little country school near our place in Adrian. And that was interesting because I had never gone to a little country school with all 8 grades.
I was
It
just going to
fun.
say, how many grades in the building?
It was fun, because, hey, maybe you spent 10 minutes on this, and then she would 10 minutes on this, and more, But the nice thing about it was that you learned from the other folks,
Mm-hmm.
So you learned a lot of other stuff that you really, you were supposed to be doing other things, but you were
You'd listen.
listening,
Yeah.
right? So it wasn't boring, and.
So when you came to Adrian, how old were you? And never mind how old, but what school did you go to?
When I came to, I don't remember the name of the little country school
Okay,
they
that
called
was
it.
one too.
But I was only there for second grade.
Okay.
To finish up second grade. And then my parents enrolled us in the Catholic school. There was St. Mary's and St. Joe's. And, we tried to get into St. Mary's because that's where we're members. However, they didn't have room for all of us. So my parents said, we're not going to have 2 in this and 3 here. So
And the schools, weren't they right near each other?
well, not
okay.
right near each
Okay.
other, but they were close.
Yeah.
Maybe driving distance,
Okay.
might be. But so they talked to the pastors, and they said, "Yeah, you can." Father Schneider was the pastor then at St. Joe's, and so he said, "Yeah, you can, put all of your children in this at St. Joe's." So that was fine until I graduated from 8th grade. And then we all moved back to St. Mary's because they finally had room for everybody. And I started high school at St. Mary's.
Okay, because that was
it was
right.
still St. Mary's. It was not Catholic Central yet. It didn't become Catholic Central until I was a junior in high school. And
Okay, that's right. I forgot about that.
Right.
And the Adrian Dominicans were there.
The Adrian Dominicans were there, and my preparation for Adrian Dominicans was way back when I was in first and second grade getting ready for First Communion, because there was a Sister Martha who would meet with all those who didn't go to a Catholic school after the Mass, and then she would teach catechism.
Right.
God love her.
That's right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And so that was my first introduction to the Adrian Dominicans when I kind of knew what a nun was because my dad or my mom would, talk about the sisters.
So your family knew about the Mother House and the Adrian Dominicans. That's always something we've questioned, not questioned, but all the years that we have been in residence here in Adrian, there are still people that don't know us, don't know about the Mother House.
Oh, my dad worked out here.
Okay.
He worked out here during the Depression. And
Okay.
he would tell stories about Sister Annunciata and Sister giving out food so that he would bring some of the bread home that she would make.
Wonderful. Uh-huh.
But he worked on the farm, And,
On your farm?
no, on this farm.
The farm here?
He worked our farm too.
Sure.
But he had both jobs, and because with that many children, you're gonna make sure that.
Yeah.
So you have funds coming in. Anyway, he would tell stories about the Mother House and the sisters, and they were interesting stories.
What do you think he'd think about the Adrian Dominicans and their campus now, as you look at us in 2023?
I think he would say, well, you know, I learned this a long time ago. All of life is constant adjustment, and that's probably what he would say. You know, look at this. They got something new, and that's good. They're responding to, you know, what is new in the world. You know? And that would be my mother too. You know, she used to play the organ, and remember Sister Faith and her sister.
Yes, Glendennings.
Right, and she would, you know, play the organ for them when they weren't around, you know, so that they would call in. She played the piano, and she taught lessons sometimes, you know, so.
Well, that's wonderful history about the Adrian Dominicans,
Yeah.
even though it's your history, too.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So basically then, you know, the people that really kind of introduced me to the Adrians were those folks that I met, you know, when I was
At
just
school.
little and
Yeah.
moved on. And if you recall Sister Margaret Joseph, do you remember her? She was the most beautiful lady. She taught 5th and 6th grade. And she used to have these career days. And so she said, we're all going to dress a little thing, you know, a doll or something to show what you would like to be. And I couldn't think of what I really wanted to be. And so I thought, well, you know, I like you. So I dressed.
So you did one of those
I
nun
did
dolls.
No, one of those nun dolls, and they still have. My sister still has it.
You should have brought it for a prop.
Oh, well, anyway, you know,
Yeah.
you'd say, oh, yeah, I remember that. Right. Anyway, she would always say, well, that sort of looks like a snooty Dominican. But I remember her. But she was so beautiful and so lovely. And she was always a great joy to, you know, as a teacher, you know.
So who did you go to when you felt you were called to become one of us?
Well, do you recall Sister Norita?
No.
No, she taught down at St. Mary's in Adrian, and she taught in the high school. She taught music. And I was in the choir, you know, those that could screech the loudest joined the choir. And so, you know, I was comfortable with her, and we, you know, we would talk a lot. And she was the one that encouraged me. Well, are you thinking of this, or are you thinking that? Because I had a sister who joined the Franciscan Sisters in New York.
In New York?
Right.
How did she know about them?
Through a retreat.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
And so then she joined, and she thought they were from Germany. And they were just a small group from Germany that worked with a nursing care, in a nursing care home. Anyway, my sister thought I was going to be, I said, oh no, I'm not going to Germany for my novitiate training. No. So
Did she?
Yes.
Oh.
And yeah, and she was in Germany, and you know, I never asked her how much she liked Germany, you know, because I didn't see her that often after, because Adrian and Buffalo, New York was a little bit of a distance, you know, so anyway.
But besides the influence, perhaps, of the sisters, the few Adrian Dominicans that you knew, there certainly was the spirit and the spirituality in your family.
Oh, absolutely.
What would you say you took, the strongest thing you took? I know you took a lot from your family life.
Well,
maybe one thing that's brought you to this day.
Well, I believe that my parents always told us about, you know, working and making sure that, you know, we helped each other and reached out to each other. And as long as I can remember, no matter what, how many children were in the family,
right.
My mother would always watch out for the neighbors and do something for anybody that happened to be, you know, sick or
so
anything.
she modeled.
Absolutely.
And then your dad's adjusting to change, him saying that too. Yeah, they modeled.
And we always, well, one thing we always did too was pray the rosary at night.
Oh, I know. Tell me about it.
We prayed the
that was
rosary
the era we
together.
grew up in.
Absolutely. And watch Bishop Sheen. Oh my, when we
Or
finally
listen,
had TV.
listen to him. We had to bring our rosary to the table, the dinner table. Okay, now, your family life sounds wonderful, you know, and very engaging, and certainly is part of who you are at this time, and your generosity yourself and what you're involved in. Now, we can't get through all your ministries. Could you just pick a couple of ministries perhaps that were transformative, or maybe there's one in particular?
Okay. Well, in my teaching career was about 25 years.
Okay.
And maybe a little more. I enjoyed all of the different levels that I
Yes,
taught in, and I taught all grades from not preschool, but from first grade to high school. And I taught basically in Chicago, and all of the places that I taught were really wonderful people that I lived with and worked with. You know. And from there, I moved back to I moved back to Detroit, and then when Vatican II started, that was when we were allowed to make a choice in where we were going to go. And there was a priest that came down from Alpena, Michigan, and said, I need teachers and I need somebody to help close a school. And so I was living with a couple of other sisters, and then there was somebody else that knew that, I don't know whether, do you remember Sister Rosalie Sene?
Yes, yes,
right.
yes.
And Debbie Uzelak.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and Jeannie DuPont. And,
know
okay,
Jeannie,
and the four of us trekked up to Alpena, Michigan.
Okay.
And we thought when we started working to close the school, people would hate us because they loved the school.
In Alpena,
And the population enrollment was going down, down, down. So we finished the 1 year, and then we worked on closing the school. Well, some of them, they liked us still, but they moved their children to St. Anne's, you know. But that was okay. And it was there that I did lots of other things that, were needed in the community.
It seems that no matter where you are, you find other things. That it's not just this one specific, but, and I think that's the gift too of your large family, that you responded to the need as it happened at the time, which is wonderful. But how do you balance that? Even nowadays, I want to hear about your working with the developmentally challenged, but even as I think of you at your present parish, and you say you're retired, you're engaged in life. And I'm sure every time there's a need, you even see it before people know it's a need, and you respond. How do you keep that balance with taking time for yourself and responding to the needs? We could drive ourselves forever taking care of the needs.
That's right.
But how do you take care of yourself?
There are times when people say, because I'm close by and I still live in a community of four, and also close to the parish.
Yeah.
People ask a lot, and they know that, first of all, that I will do it if I can. And so I always ask them, what is it that you want me to do? And then when they tell me, if I feel I don't have the energy or the time to do that, then I say, well, I can't do that right now.
Okay.
But if
so you're able to say,
I'm able to say no. Not that I say no all the time, because people get after me for not saying no. But that's all right. But my prayer life, I think, is very important. And I feel that my prayer with the sisters, as well as the community I live with, which is extremely beautiful. The people at Corpus Christi in Detroit are just wonderful, and they're extremely welcoming, and they're a very prayerful community. And as I said, Father Patrick Dangano, who is he doesn't want to be called a pastor, but he is, the pastoral person there, because we have family of parishes now instead of parishes.
All right, now I noticed in your, where you've been, you worked a lot with the developmentally challenged.
I did.
So briefly, could you just tell us a little bit how you got into that?
I worked there with the developmentally challenged for 17 years.
Okay.
And I worked as a manager.
In Detroit?
In Detroit,
okay.
Right. And with community living centers.
Okay.
And I got into that because I was leaving West Virginia because my mother was sick. And so I was going to come back to Detroit in this area and be available, Well, my mother died before I got back to Detroit, but I took a sabbatical anyway.
Okay.
But I had already made contact with with a group of folks that were working with the developmentally challenged
Okay.
outside of South Bend, Indiana. And I had a promise of a job because this person was going to retire. Well, when I was finished with my sabbatical, she didn't retire, and they told me, well, we'll call you when she retires. I said, I'll be actively looking for a job, so you can call me if I don't have a job. So they didn't call until, you know, I was well into working in Detroit. And I worked with the developmentally challenged when I was in Chicago with the, forget what they called it, but it was the religious program, and it was the archdiocesan program. And so I did have experience working with them before I ever came to, you know, and then I continued to work with them in Kentucky and in West Virginia because they all have places, you know, but it was, you know, at different spots.
With that particular population.
Right.
Yeah.
So there, you know, was a need there too, you know. So, and my time with them was really good. You know, it took a lot of energy to work with the developmentally disabled because you had to be 24 hours present.
Right.
And
Right.
if you were the manager, it wasn't, oh, well, you know, you only have
24/7,
8 hours.
yeah.
You know, hey, they could call you and say, hey, somebody's in the hospital, you got to get here. And so it was, you know, a time that I never knew what tired meant until I was working with them, and it was like tired to the bone. You know?
Yeah.
Because they're beautiful people,
Demanding,
and
demanding.
they're very thanking. I mean, they'll be very thankful and everything. But I think that, you know, one thing I learned was that they have a hard time to know when to be grateful. You know, and you know, so it was like one thing. You had to be present all the time, you know,
Right.
for them.
Right.
But I enjoyed working there. But I knew it was time for me to retire when I was 70. I think I was 78 when I retired. Right,
Very
79.
exhausting.
Right.
What was it that you knew within you? Because that's a hard thing to decide when you're very involved and you love what you're doing. What was it that spoke to you that you said, I need to let go and move on?
Well,
Just
I had
briefly.
I had had heart surgery.
Well, that's a good one.
And I continued to work, you know, for a couple of years after that. But then I also went to New Orleans for I think I was there 8 weeks. And I took a leave of work then. And I noticed that there was a big difference in my life, you know, when I wasn't constantly available, you know. And so I thought, you know, that was part of my discernment. You know. I couldn't be constantly available all the time. Right? So I decided I would continue to work, not as a manager, but I would do you know, night time, because that was the hardest time to get someone to work. So I would be the overnight person. Well, I did that for about 4 years, and that was it.
So you knew when to step aside.
That's right.
That is a true gift, to know when to step aside.
You just didn't know.
Right.
You just didn't do the nighttime. They'd call you for any time, you know. So anyway, but I loved, you know, the aspect they didn't have any concern about the mores of society. They didn't. You know, they didn't even know. You know? And,
so you were a true gift to them, and it sounds as though they have gifted you as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Very
right.
much so.
And,
you
know,
get back
learn,
what you
you
give.
learn a lot from everyone.
Is there something that you had those long lists of things I said just think about that you wished I had asked, and right now as we're drawing to a close, I didn't ask, that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, well, you didn't ask me if I had any scripture passages that I like. And
All right, tell us what your scripture passage
As a
is.
matter of fact, I do. I like Micah, to love justly, to love tenderly, and act justly, and walk humbly with the Lord.
Oh,
you know, I
that's
like
beautiful.
that. But I also like, in the Genesis creation story, I like, and God said, this is good, you know. And so if God said this is good, it's good for me as well. And what do I do with the good, you know?
And that's what God said on the day you were born. This is good.
That's right.
Yes.
Right, absolutely.
And
And I believe that, right?
Right. Right.
But I really thank the community for all of the different ministries that they have allowed me to be a part of. Because when I was in Kentucky, I first went there and I thought, I didn't ask for subsidy. What am I going to do? So I got a job in the public school. And that's why I taught in the public school for 8 years.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Very good.
And that was an interesting thing, you know,
You
because
taught in Kentucky.
and I was so happy that I had had experience in teaching before I got into public school.
So totally different.
It was
Yeah.
a challenge
Yeah.
at first, I'll tell you that, you know.
So, Ellen, what do you do, briefly,
Okay.
for vacation?
What do I do for vacation?
What do you like to do for fun and vacation?
Well,
or?
usually my sister has a place on Devil's Lake.
Okay,
And it's a beautiful place.
wonderful.
And I go there and I'm with her, or I come to Adrian and I'm with my sister here in Adrian.
So how many of your siblings still live in Adrian or the environs?
Okay, there are, let's see, five of them
Okay.
that still live in the vicinity.
Yeah,
I have one in
yeah.
Toledo, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so I usually visit them, or go someplace,
Okay.
you know, just for. Yeah, I've been out to what is not in Innisfail anymore. What is the place?
Killarney.
Killarney. Okay.
Yeah.
I go.
You're
to
showing your
Killarney.
age when you say Innisfail.
I know. I was there.
I know. I know.
Okay. Anyway, and then just for enjoyment, I crochet, I read,
Wonderful.
I walk.
What do you like to read? Not holy books. Do you have other books you
Oh
like to
yes,
read?
I have other books that I probably
Just one. Never mind.
I like novels.
Okay, good. Any special kind of novels?
Probably mysteries.
Yes, very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
David Baldacci is.
Oh, yeah. You read one of his books, you've read them all.
Right. Yeah. Well, I like him
I
anyway.
like him
mean,
too.
he's a good writer.
He
Right.
is. He's very good.
So.
Okay, anything else? Your last thought you want to leave with us? And we're just delighted
Well,
that...
I love my family and the
Yeah.
Adrian Dominican congregation and everything about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still, I get out of bed in the morning and I say, thank God I can do the next thing.
Right.
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 And so,
And it seems like you'll know when you can't do the next thing.
well, I hope
Yes,
so.
yes, very much
Right,
so.
right.
So God bless you so much, Ellen. And it's been a delight to get to know you. I did not know you at all, except,
And I talk
here
too
the-
much. Huh?
No, I cut you off a few times because you noticed. No, you talk. It's better than pulling things out of an individual. So just keep on living as fully and gracefully as you have, and you're a true credit to your large family.
Oh,
and,
yes, right.
and what's the names of all of them?
Oh, you would like the names
Yeah,
of all?
just-
My brother Art is the oldest, and he's in heaven.
Okay.
And my sister Mary, who was Sister Frederica,
Okay.
and she's in heaven. And my
Frederica, the one that went.
that's right,
Okay.
OSF. And my sister Pauline, and my sister, my brother Fred, and he's in heaven, and my brother Jim is in heaven.
So the boys are in heaven.
That's right, all of them.
Okay.
They all died
Okay,
before they
that's
were
5.
80 or whatever.
Okay.
And then my sisters that are still living. Liz is the youngest, and she's not well, and so we pray
Okay,
for her.
okay.
And Char lives here in Adrian.
Okay.
And Rosalie lives in Adrian, and Joan lives not far from Adrian in Clayton. And Ann lives in Toledo, and Kathleen lives in Florida. And let's see.
You.
And no, I got one in Alaska, Diane in Alaska.
Oh,
And
my goodness.
Right, and I'm in Detroit.
Well, when we have our funerals, I shouldn't be saying this, but when we have our funerals and, they always say, the loving nieces and nephews would be around. We have some of our sisters who don't have loving nieces and nephews because they're an only child, because they want to borrow some from another family.
Oh.
Have you ever heard them say that?
Well,
Can I
no.
borrow some of your?
Oh, but that would be
Anyway,
interesting,
it's kind of
because I
interesting.
have more than I know.
Yeah,
you know,
and your
so-
your great nieces and nephews and your great greats. So
Absolutely.
anyway, we could go on and on. So God bless you, and thank you so much for sharing your story. It has enriched us as a congregation and all those whose lives you have touched because you said yes to whatever was in front of you.
Thank
so
you.
take care.
Right.
And safe trip home and just take your time. Thank you.
Okay, I'll
Thank
do
you.
that. All right, thank